Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be back with another young Indian. This time, perhaps one of the youngest. I don't say perhaps, I think the youngest that I have done a Vidped with. He just finished grade 12. Ranveer, we have with us Ranveer Ratra. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Ranveer.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank Dr. Mathur once again for inviting me onto his platform. I remember the last time I'd come specifically to discuss my paper, but I think I have a few more things that I'd want to bring up now on this bed. So previously, what I discussed was specifically around my paper and how I'm intrigued by mathematics and economics and why I started research over there. But I think that my journey to becoming or an upcoming first year is much longer than simply just the research that I've done. So over the course of grade 11 and 12, or my final 2 years of high school, I had a number of projects that I participated in, and one of them that I've may have mentioned before is my CAS project. It's called Ranveer ke saath paise ki baat. It started as a YouTube channel initially, where I'd post videos to sort of as a community support, as a form of community support. I thought there was a lack of financial education in India. So that's where I sort of started with my journey in understanding economics and finance. So I made short form videos where I would sort of explain that this is how investing is done, or this is how saving and budgeting is done, but in Hindi, so that I could reach a larger portion of the Indian population. The YouTube channel is still there, and so is my website. On the website, I've listed modes of communication, and I even created a budget calculator. So what it does is actually, it was not very extensive code, but it was very small amount of code. It just lets you place your expenses, your needs, and all of those amounts into the system, and then it'll give you where you should divide it and how much you have left, whether you're going above, whether there's a deficit in your budget, there's a surplus. So it sort of help you save, help people that are new to managing money manage their money. Because I felt even though there's an access to technology, that I would see that a lot of people have smartphones, but not everyone would have a bank account. That's where I sort of began thinking about this project. But even after the videos on the website, during my final year of high school, I did a lot of in-person sessions. I would go to construction sites. I would go to sort of all of the house help near my house and give them sessions in person, advising them and even helping them in person. And okay,
Mm,
this is how you create a mobile banking account,
mm,
because mobile banking is on the rise in India, definitely. We have Paytm, Google Pay, that's very big now in India. I would say it's in a lot of places, it's used more than cash even.
mm,
And I thought that if I'm able to support people get onto this new payment method, then that can help digitize India and help sort of
mm.
create a sort of cashlessness. Because with cash, there's always the scare of whether it's being taxed or not being taxed. And there's a lot of undisclosed income that needed to be discussed. And that's one thing that I was focused on.
Okay.
That's what I worked upon. And once I went further into that, I also worked with my school. There was a lot of support staff at my school, whether it was the cleaning people or the bus drivers. I even did a session with them. And that's where I sort of understood that, all right, I have some kind of connection with economics. And that's where I got the start and spoke to Ms. Mawa and began my research paper as I discussed previously.
Mhm.
And within this process, I realized that I was producing a lot of content. I was producing a lot of economic content, whether it was in my research paper, whether it was in school, even through essays or assignments, and even in this platform. I realized that I'd gotten an edge for producing content. So in that same process, I decided that, okay, maybe I should produce even more. So I'd even started a blog where I would publish weekly stories, and not only stories, but there were a lot of ideas and philosophies. I sort of got carried away as the blog went on because I realized that I really had the freedom to write anything. And that probably led me to writing more for myself than for the reader, which may have been not the most positive decision, but it was something that happened over the course of my blog. And I think at that point, I realized that I've produced a lot of content, but economics is more of an understanding of a theory. And I realized that I wasn't maybe understanding to the level that I would have wanted, and I wasn't researching the way that I would have wanted. And as I reflect on the process of my research paper and all of the economic study that I've done, even with my community service project, one thing that I realized that there was a lack of usage of data. I feel like I could have used a lot of data better to optimize what I was doing. And as I begin university, as I had mentioned in the previous Vidped, is that I want to extend my research at the university level. So as I intend to do that, when I begin my first year in university this fall, in about a month's time, I have specifically taken the major of economics along with the major of computer science, because I felt that would enable me to maintain relevancy in the new world where technology becomes more and more potent. And I would use that knowledge of numbers and computers and data sets to then enhance the research that I would do in an economic setting. And I saw that at the university that I will be attending, there's already a great presence of research into biostatistics and a lot of other statistical research, even in economics. So I thought that, okay, if I include something else, that'll probably create more width in my research as an economics enthusiast. Also, I felt that I was reading things better as I began producing more content. That's probably something that I would give credit to studying history. I remember in one of your previous vidpeds, you'd mentioned that even I think it was your father that studied history. And I realized that history actually enabled me to read things in economic texts better, because I was always looking into a source and perspectives. And a lot of times history is sort of just a story that's being told most acceptably. So I felt that possibly as a student of economics or as a student of theory, I ought to improve my writing in a way where it can be accessed and understood by more people. So although history wasn't I would say it wasn't the best subject at school. I was still more skilled with, well, mathematics and economics, but it was something that did improve my understanding of reading and knowledge much more. So that's one thing that I wanted to give a start about. And I realized that in this summer vacation, what the main thing that I did, oh, sorry, you're on mute. Could you please?
Since you have finished one thing, let me just add here. You said you wrote for yourself first and then for the audience. That's the
Yes.
best way. That is actually the best way. You have to write for yourself and find the audience that likes what you write. Okay, trying to write for the audience leads to hack work. Well, I won't call it hack work. I would say, yes, it's essential. We have to have it. But it's not creative. Creative is you write for yourself and see if anyone is interested in it. Okay. So don't be misled by others who say, listen, whom are you writing for? Your answer should be first and foremost for me. Because that's what's coming out of me. And what comes out of me should be me, not somebody else. And then you can manipulate it, edit it. This is separate, okay? But that's processing it. But what comes out should be for you. I think as a writer, I would say first write for yourself. And
Thank you for that piece of
don't worry about the audience, and I mean, this whole Vidped people ask me, what's your base? I said, listen, I don't care what is the base. I want to give each person a chance to speak, irrespective of whether the base likes it or doesn't like it. I don't want to become a prisoner of my base. I want to give the freedom to the speaker. And you should have the same freedom for yourself when you write. Oh, heck, I want to write this, because that's the only way to write creatively and quickly. I'm just preaching a little bit here. If you want to write quickly and creatively, write for yourself. At the end, when you've written something, you should say, damn, that was good. And you are your own judge. you are your own. Yeah, okay. Somebody will also like it, and then you'll find your channel, your groove, people who support you. So let me just preach a little bit here. I don't think that it's mistake to you hit on the right idea. Let me write for myself. All right, okay, let's continue.
So like you said, I did write for myself. The only thing that I thought was that I probably gave myself a little too much creative freedom, or at least that's what I thought. That most people would be like, I didn't really understand what you've written. But I enjoyed it at the time, so
Hmm.
I've been keeping up with the blog in that way. I would mention the link to you as well, sir. You could probably read one of my entries.
Yeah, sure.
I've forgotten my trail of thought. 1 second, sir.
Okay, you finished your one piece, so let's go to the next segment.
Yes. So as I mentioned about my school journey sort of coming to an end and me focusing on sort of looking at statistics and economics and a more evidence-driven research into economics as I go to university. And a few things that I realized that I might want to drive my future towards as I go to university
Hmm.
is that a lot of times is that a lot of people around me, a lot of my classmates, and a lot of them are very focused on sort of getting into a very structured system of a sort of that, okay, we'll go to university, there'll be a specific internship, and then there'll be a specific job, and then it's the end. I do agree that it's important to sort of think in that direction, to sort of look at life in steps, but I was more intrigued when I looked at university as an experience to explore. And that's where I sort of became more interested in research opportunities during university. I found that even in my first year of university, even though I'm just a freshman, I just be starting my university life, I'm allowed to research with even other universities and my own university as well. And there's a lot of increasing research opportunities that might even help me create a career that's sort of wouldn't be accessible through a regular internship. So what I really wanted to focus upon was looking into research into a few things like I'd previously done on more environmental policies, like my paper that which was on carbon credits. I think that I'd want to go further into that, but more I would say on the side of microeconomics than macroeconomics. I felt that my previous research on macroeconomics sort of it, although I did gain a lot of knowledge from it, I thought that maybe if I put more focus into a specific industry or a specific company, I could probably create more value out of that research. And I realized that a lot of research that's published more recently has become increasingly more macroeconomical or more wide. And I felt that maybe I should go back and sort of become more focused as a researcher. That was the plan that I had going into university. And if yes, I was talking about my plan throughout the summer. That's where I previously left off. So because I just finished high school, I had about 3 months of essentially nothing
Yeah,
or entirely free time before I
yeah.
went to university. And although I did enjoy quite a lot, I did waste a lot of time. I thought that there was a few things that I should definitely work or read upon. And
Yeah.
a few things that I definitely wanted to read upon was I started reading a lot of work by Peter Thiel and Ray Dalio. Those have sort of become the people that I've started looking up to in a way. And I learned a few things from both of them that I thought would be important to share on this panel. One thing that I specifically learned from Peter Thiel, and is one thing that I'd want to use as I move forward in my university journey, is that growth happens in two ways exactly. It happens in a horizontally and vertically. So I'm sure, sir, you've been introduced to this concept previously, but innovation is vertical and then globalization is horizontal. So because the 1990s and 2000s, there was the dot-com boom and there was a lot of new innovation happening. We had a lot of vertical growth. But as the 2010 set in, there was more globalization as even developing countries were being included into the same development. And I think that's what's been happening for the past 15 years. But a new pattern that I noticed was with artificial intelligence. And I realized that artificial intelligence could be the new form of vertical growth for the economy. And I think that's one specific place that I specifically wanted to target. And that's one thing that I've been exploring throughout the summer. Like I realized that it isn't always that I have to have the hard skills, because I realized that artificial intelligence can replace the hard skills that an individual has. But like you said, that we have to write for ourselves, and that creativity cannot exactly be replaced. And that's what I worked upon the most, is that I maintain my creative side, but the hard skills can then be replaced by artificial intelligence.
Okay, let's continue.
So as I worked with artificial intelligence, even like I'd previously spoken about in my website, the budget calculator, I haven't released this new version onto the website, but I was sort of tinkering with it. And I realized that artificial intelligence can actually code better than I can, because, well, I'm not the best computer scientist yet, hopefully. Maybe I could be a better one in the future, but I wasn't always the best with computer languages. And I realized that if the artificial intelligence can code better than me, then possibly it could even write stories better than me. And I tried that. I tried creating a lot of my stories using AI. I tried using prompts, but I felt that there was a lack of, I would say, originality in them. Like it felt like it was a recreation, although something that we create ourselves can be more creatively expressed. That was one specific observation that I made.
Hmm.
That's another point that I wanted to bring up. And I had one last point that I wanted to bring up with you, sir, is I remember in the previous Vidped, I had mentioned to you at the end that I was a trek, like I had done a trek to Mount Everest Base Camp, and you'd said
Yes,
that you would speak about it.
yes,
And I had asked a lot of my classmates at that time, but because we were in our final year of
yeah,
high school, none of them were really available. So I thought I'd give you a bit of
yeah,
the
let's have
speaking.
it.
So it was actually something that was organized by my school director. He was in the army, and he was always very enthusiastic about giving us more out of the classroom experiences. So there was a trial, and some students were selected to be able to go for a trek to Mount Everest Base Camp. It was about 20 students that went on a 14-day trek. It was 14 days up and down. We had about, I think it was 7 days up and 4 or 5 days on the way down. It's faster on the way down because we don't have to acclimatize, and it's downhill, so it's easier to climb down. But I think that might have taught me a few things. Actually, would have taught me a lot of things about economics itself. Well, firstly, because there isn't as much supply there, it's very difficult to get food there or anything at all, actually. And everything has to travel by yak. There's no plane or train as such. So my friends and I, we would go, and there'd be a shop in the middle of the mountains. It's a small container, and we might want to buy a bounty. It's a chocolate, and we realized it's for about 100 or even 200 rupees, which we would buy usually for 30 rupees. So we realized that because it's so difficult to get to this point, and we realized because the demand is so much steeper, we must we must pay a much higher price even at this location. But instead of that small understanding of economics, I think the experience was much more, I would say, scenic. There was a lot of physical challenges. I even felt sick in the middle, and some students even fell terribly ill, but we were all able to make it to the end. And I think one thing that I specifically wanted to note was there was one student who was low on oxygen, I think 2 nights before we were going to Mount Everest Base Camp, because at that altitude, people can get sick due to the lack of oxygen. But even though they were extremely sick and puking, but they were able to make it at the end. And I think that was just the team effort and the support of the school staff at that point.
Hmm. Well, Ranveer, that was great. But since you are an accomplished young person, I want to add a technical note to what you said.
Right,
Actually, at the height, there's no lack of oxygen. What's
right.
lacking is the atmospheric pressure.
Yes, right. That's right.
It's not,
That's so
colloquially, people say that there's a lack
yes,
of
lack of
oxygen,
oxygen.
but actually, there is the same level of oxygen.
Mhm.
What is missing is the atmospheric pressure,
Yes, you're
right?
right.
And that's why you don't get enough oxygen because there's not enough oxygen. You have to pull it. There's no push, right? So so that just since you are
Yes,
at thinking about all these things technically, that's what happens at the altitude. Uh,
right, sir.
but I've heard that base camp Everest is like you can get espressos and other fancy things. How
On
true?
certain points you can, but I would say the main thing was you can actually take a helicopter from Kathmandu to the base camp
Yes.
directly, so you don't have to trek at all.
Uh,
So some people do that, but
yeah.
then we tried to do it walking the entire time.
Yeah.
There is a great level of supply for a lot of things. Like we did still get, like we got rice and we got dal, and we even, I think some places there was still, there's a local noodles, like
Yeah.
YY it's called, that still reached. But most of the things, then again, like you said, even if they're able to offer an espresso or a coffee, it's worth 300-400 rupees, even though
Yeah, okay.
it's
And
really
what language you use to the shopkeepers and all as you're climbing up?
they would understand Hindi,
They would understand it.
understood Hindi completely.
Okay, fine.
And even some of them, like the guides or the Sherpas, even spoke English a little bit.
But they have to because they are catering to
Yes, because
for
they would be guiding a lot of international people.
yeah,
So
they're guiding international people. But was it fun overall?
most definitely, sir. I can't wait to do another trek. Maybe when I come to the United States, I'll trek somewhere there.
Oh, there's no such heights there. There's nothing like base camp. It's 18,000 feet. There's no place, I think, outside that, which is 18,000. So you have to go back there, or maybe Kilimanjaro, something like that. But even that, I think, is not 18,000. So it's remarkable. That's great. Anything else you want to tell us? Any advice you have for 11th and 12th grade students since you just finished?
I would say one piece of advice is never think that you're less for a college. Like, never think that, oh, I'd never get in here. You should apply to every out of this world school
Mm,
that's the top 10.
okay.
And I think because it's at some point, it's not just a direct, okay, I have the numbers for it. I think there's a lot of personality and even luck involved. So a lot of times, sometimes what we think that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done this or this is too hard to get into, it's anything is possible. It's possible,
Okay.
I
So
would say.
optimism.
Yes,
Your
I would
motto is
say that's the only thing that can get you through a college application process because there'll be a lot of no's and rejections. So
okay.
optimism is very important, I would say, to anybody in 11th or 12th.
Okay. Anything else you want to add here?
I would say, I think at this point, I'd probably say that I would want to come back to the show when I'm even more experienced and established, when I've done more research, when I've worked more in the stream of economics and mathematics. I think then if I come back to the show, I'll be able to see my own progress and help.
Right. Okay.
Progress.
Wonderful. We'll have you back at some point, and let's see when that happens. But let's end it here today. And thank you so much, Ranveer. It's always a pleasure to talk to young people and to hear what they're doing. So, bye, everybody. I'll be back with another young person or an expert
Thank
soon.
you so
Bye
much.
till then. Bye.